morning. I swear a lot.
It is 2:32 in the PM, and you're watching The Foreman. I'm your host, Foreman, and today I really wanted to talk about video games for a change, because we don't actually talk about video games a lot on this show, and that was kind of the whole point of it, was to talk about video games. So I decided to really break tradition and actually talk about video games today. Specifically, I want to talk about something that's, for some reason, really seems to affect my ability to pick up and play a game or to enjoy a game. It's not enough to make me dislike a game, but it bothers me. It always bothers me, it always heckles at the back of my mind. And it's the fact that I like to play boring characters. It's hard to explain. I like to play boring characters in ridiculous or extremely unfair contexts, right? Like, this is why I love the Imperial Guard in 40k, for instance, because you've got psychic using plasma blaster gun wielding aliens up against, like, people. The Imperial Guard is people, and they have to fight that. And I find it, out of the two, I'd find it more interesting to play as the Guard trying to fight against that ridiculous bullshit. I'm not sure what specifically makes me feel this way, but I feel like video games themselves are kind of a big cause of this, and probably films as well, but we're going to focus more on the video game aspect of this. And it's the fact that every goddamn game I play, or almost every goddamn game you play, especially around, say, the noughties, like the 2000s, the 90s, and probably a fair bit of the 20-teens as well, you are the chosen one. You have innate special powers that no one else has, and you're really special, and you're the coolest guy, and like, it's only you can do this, no one else can do it, only you, because you're so fucking special and unique and brilliant, and you're a Mary Sue John Doe looking motherfucker. And I find that boring. I don't want to play a game where my worth has already been established, because what does that leave me to do? If I succeed, I'm just doing what the game expects me to do. If I fail, I'm underperforming. I'm much more interested in playing games where I am some random fuck who is no more or less special than anyone else. Just some random dude. Now, games which make you the chosen one try to play this up a bit. They'll be like, nobody cares about you, you're not important, but that you're so special, you'll show them. And I'm like, no, I want to show them via my own merits, by my own standard abilities that are no different to what anyone else has. The only reason I would stand out in any way would be due to the effort I put in, not because I have the power to stop time innately, or I have more power than everyone else. I just find it boring. I don't find it engaging to be a chosen one. I don't find it interesting. Perhaps because it's been done to death in 1,000,001 different forms of media. This might be why, despite not being a horror guy, like really not being a horror guy, like I get very anxious playing horror games and I'm a huge coward with them, but it might be why I like survival horror. Because like the whole fucking point of survival horror is that you are usually just some dude or gal with no special abilities, often under-equipped for the task at hand, desperately trying to survive against things that are way beyond your power or comprehension. That's more interesting to me. That makes for more engaging gameplay experiences. Dead Space 1 actually did this quite well, because Isaac is shockingly competent. Like, that's more of an action horror game than a survival horror game, unless you play it on hard, at which point it is very much a survival horror game. I would highly recommend playing Dead Space on the harder difficulties, because it turns it into an honest-to-God survival horror experience. And enemies that aren't actually that scary, because once you've been jump scared like twice in that game, and the jump scares are very mild, they don't scare you anymore. And in fact, you can see them coming, because you can see a fully formed necromorph laying on the floor not doing anything. You're like, well, he's gonna get up, so you shoot him in the leg before he gets up, and he proceeds to be rather miffed about the whole situation. But Isaac Clarke in Dead Space 1, I'm not speaking about the rest of the games because I haven't played them, so I don't really have an opinion on them. Playing that on hard difficulty is one of my favorite examples of a character who is just some fucking dude, and I'm talking about the original Dead Space as well, I haven't played the remaster either, forced into a situation far beyond his capabilities. Now, in terms of gameplay, you've got the tools needed to survive. relatively comfortably if you play well, but Isaac himself really lends himself to being a character who is beyond his depth. Small things like when, I know I've talked about this before, but guess what, I'm going to talk about it again. When necromorphs grab him and you have to mash a button to get them off, he doesn't just throw them off, he hits them, he punches them, he kicks them, he stamps on them. There's adrenaline and anger and him desperately flailing against things that want him dead and would not have to try too hard to kill him. And that is more interesting to me. Instead of playing a perfect, elven-born, beautifully handsome or beautiful or whatever, depending on whom you want your Mary Sue to be, character who can effortlessly dodge everything and is perfect and also, has a million abilities, and also all the characters of their preferred sex likes them and wants to be with them and everything. I find that boring. It's boring. It's not enjoyable. I don't want to imagine being a better person. I'd rather just work in real life to being a better person. I'd rather play someone who is a boring-ass, useless schmuck and make them get better. And fix them, I guess. Not really, but improve them, watch them grow, develop them. Disco Elysium is funny because Disco Elysium actually takes you in the complete opposite direction, where it's like, you don't like being a chosen one? Alright, your character is fucking useless. Your character is completely fucking useless. Your character is an absolute goddamn mess and can't even perform basic tasks without either a high chance of failure or assistance from his caretaker Kim. You gotta snip a lock with some bolt cutters. Well, you failed because you were trying to snip the fucking base of the lock rather than the hoop, which is such an obvious basic logic thing, but goes to show just how useless your character is. And then he gets upset when he fucks up the task and takes morale damage. That's like ideal. Now, it's not necessarily the gameplay style that I'm craving for playing as a random schmuck who isn't perfect, but it is very effective there and very enjoyable. But like, I like games like Battle Brothers, for instance, where you are leading a team of just dudes. They're just people. You can hire anything from a beggar to someone who has actually been crippled due to previous experiences in their life, to thieves, murderers, monks, random barbarians, and you can hire people as good as retired soldiers, knights, proper mercenaries. And you get to watch these people grow and get stronger and more and adapt to their careers, and you get to watch many more of them fucking die, because that's what happens in that game, but that's more interesting to me. It creates a more interesting situation. Well, it's like, and this won't interest many of you, but I'll attempt to, maybe make this a bit more, try and explain it in a way where you can understand, but Total Warhammer 3, or just the Total Warhammer series in general, there are many extremely, excessively powerful characters you can play, like legendary lords you can have leading your armies, excessively powerful ones. The Sisters of Twilight, who are a pair of elven sisters who ride on the back of a giant hawk. Peerless archers, extremely powerful in melee, can regenerate health, they can fly, so if they don't want to get into a melee fight, they don't have to. Easily one of the most powerful legendary lords in the game. You can play Tyrion, who is just basically the king of the elves, and he's ridiculously strong. You can play as, what's her name? Oh, I can't remember. The Storm Dragon, the female leader of Cathay, who is a literal Chinese dragon in human form and can transform into a dragon and also has magic and also is very strong in melee. Or you could play as Alberic de Bordelot, who is a guy. He's just a guy. He's just a knight. That's pretty much all he's got. Now, he's a very good knight. But he's still just a knight. No magic powers. He's got a trident that allows him to summon waves of water, which does middling to low amounts of damage. And he rides a hippogriff, which is pretty cool, but every other lord in that faction, you know, the knights, can ride those as well. And the ones who can't, the prophetesses, well, they have magic, so that kind of makes up for it. But I find Alberic more interesting to play, because he's a guy. He's just a guy, and he's going up against greenskins and dark elves and the powers of chaos and Archaon the Ever-Chosen and Kolek Suneater, a dragon ogre who towers over mountains. And then you have Alberic, who is a guy. Just a dude, and he fights to defend his people. And there is nothing more respectable to me in terms of a fictional character than just being some loser who decides to get up and try, despite not having magical powers or innate ancestral abilities or race-given powers or any of that crap. Just a person, a dude or a dudette. You know, gender doesn't matter here. Just a person who, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the world they're in, kinda sucks. I just find that more interesting. It's like while playing Darkside as well. Like, you have the option to choose between 4 different characters you can play as a zealot, who is, to be fair, I quite like zealots because they are still just people, but they are people driven by holy zealous fervor to just go into melee and smash people up. You can play as a psyker who has ungodly mental abilities that can explode dozens of heads simultaneously, or you can play as an ogryn who has just a raw brute strength to smash through crowds of people, or you can play as the veteran, who's just a guardsman. Now, to be fair, he's a veteran guardsman, an elite guardsman in a profession where the first mission has a 90% death rate. You know, they're gonna be pretty fucking good. But the guardsman, much like the zealot, the priest, earns their place. They earn their place by being really good at what they do, and they got there by doing it. They didn't get there because they have built-in psychic powers or built-in large amounts of strength. They're not a space marine, so they didn't get a bunch of genetic enhancements to make them powerful, although to be fair, space marines do earn their place, it must be said. They don't just wake up and are suddenly really powerful, but that's a completely different tangent that we won't get into. My point is that they excel, or even just do their best, despite having no natural advantages. Guardsman weaponry is considered some of the weakest in that universe. But they still go in, they still try, and they still make it work, and that is more interesting to me. That's just more fun to play. I don't know, I don't know how else to put it than that, but standard-ass people will always be more interesting to me than legendary Mary Sue's. They always will be. They're always just more enjoyable. I like playing Bretonnia and Total Warhammer because their soldiers suck. Their cavalry's great, everything else is garbage, but having them clutch out a win feels all the more satisfying because they had to fucking work for it, because the odds were against them, because they don't really stand a chance against what they're up against, but they fight anyway. And that's the coolest thing. That's the coolest thing ever to me. It's why when talking about that Fixer game that I want made based on Library of Ruina, I don't want to have a character who's going to be like, oh, well, you inherited this weapon, or you inherited these clothes, or you have this ability, or you've manifested ego, and that's where your career begins. No, I want to be a Fixer, one of millions, undoubtedly, obviously not millions, but one of many, struggling to claw their way up. It will be hard. I think it would be cool, actually, if that game had, you know, this fantasy game I'm coming up with, had an origin system as well, where it's like, well, where do you start? Were you a nest dweller who was kicked out? Were you a rat? Like, it's hard to think of many here, but, like, stuff like that which could affect how things begin. That game is really just sounding more and more similar to Battle Brothers, to be honest, but I think Battle Brothers has a lot that could make that game what I want to play. That's why I like games like XCOM, for instance, because your soldiers are just people. Now, you can get psionic users and stuff like that, but moments when, like, I would play XCOM Enemy Within, for instance, and I had an assault class dude with a shotgun holding off waves of Exalt reinforcements because he was in the right place at the right time, and he had fought for long enough and had gained enough experience that he could fight effectively. He wasn't invincible. They eventually overwhelmed him and killed him because he's just a guy, but the fact that he did that made it so much more memorable. If he was a genetically engineered, psionically powered, artifact-wielding demigod, the fact that he did that wouldn't have meant anything. I'd have been like, well, yeah, that's just what he's supposed to do. That's literally his job. He's a one-man killing machine, you know? That's all he needs to do. But he's just a dude. He was just a dude, and he held the fucking line, and that was a memorable and interesting experience to me, and XCOM 2 is full of them. I could sit here talking about them all day, but they have no context for you. These characters were important to me and no one else, so I'll refrain from that. But the point stands that these are experiences that would only be as fulfilling, engaging, and immersive as they were because the people in question weren't special. they became special. And that's what I want to play in a video game. I don't want to be special, I want to become special. I want to earn it. I want to feel like I've earned it. If I do become overpowered, I want it to be because I got there, not because I started there. Fallout New Vegas is actually a great example of this. Probably more so out of all of the other Fallout games that I'm aware of, maybe except 2. Because in all those games, you start off as a vault dweller, typically. And, like, nothing in the universe says that vault dwellers are, like, inherently stronger. But there kind of does seem to be an essence of that implied, where it's like vault dwellers just tend to do better and are healthier, and despite the fact that really they should do worse in the post-apocalyptic world, but for some reason they always just end up being better and smarter and healthier and handsomer and all that crap. But in Fallout New Vegas, you're a courier. You were born in the wasteland. There's nothing special about you. Like, the name Courier 6 does in fact carry some legacy, which you would know if you play more of the game, but I won't spoil those details here. Your title does carry some significance, but that's because of stuff your character did, not impressive things, let me point out. It's not like you faced down an entire army. You just gained a reputation kind of without even knowing about it because you did a lot of courier work. But that game starts with you being shot in the head. So you're clearly not that special, are you, if a couple of thugs manage to subdue you, tie you up, shoot you in the head, and bury you in a shallow grave? And then you start that game and you're like, I suck. You're not that bad, you're still probably a bit more capable than everyone around you, but you're still just a person with a pistol or a stick trying to figure out what you're going to do. And then by the end of Fallout New Vegas, you can become one of the most powerful entities in the wasteland, mowing down entire armies by yourself, but you have to get there. You don't just start there, you have to earn it. You have to get there. The legend of the courier only becomes a thing once you earn it. Until then, you're no one. All you are is someone who miraculously survived a shot to the head. That's cool, but not as unique as it sounds, because I actually watched a video on this. At the start of the game, Benny shoots you point blank in the forehead. Just don't get shot forehead. But he shoots you point blank in the forehead, and there have been many documented cases in real life of people surviving gunshots to the forehead, because the forehead is one of the strongest parts of the human body. It is fucking solid, and bullets have been known to either lodge into the bone or even ricochet off the forehead. It's that strong. So the fact that your character survives their gunshot is not actually that special, per se. Now, don't get me wrong, being buried in a shallow grave is not great, and being shot in the forehead would still probably do some damage, might even cause some disabilities, but it's not that special, which means your character is not special. You're just a person in the Fallout universe, and maybe that's why I like New Vegas the most, because it is the greatest example, I feel, of just being some random schmuck in the wasteland. You have an objective, sure, and you can pursue that as fast or slowly as you like. Other than that, no special abilities, except VATS. VATS is a bit iffy, but I don't use VATS that much. Mainly because if you're playing Fallout New Vegas, right? And New Vegas might be one of the buggiest Fallout games that exists. When you use VATS, there is a distinct possibility, not high, but high enough, that you can soft lock yourself. Straight up soft locks the game, and you have to quit out and go back in. Alright, soft lock may not have been the right term, but soft crash, perhaps. A soft crash, and you have to quit out of the game and go back in because you just remain stuck in VATS, which is dumb. But yeah, that is one of, I think, the better examples of a game that lets you play as just some random dude. You're nothing special, you become special, and that's respectable. It's not to say I don't enjoy any games where you're an absurdly overpowered and innate gift-laden character, like Shadow of War, for instance. Shadow of War is one of my favorite games of all time. I actually love Shadow of War. I think it's such an enjoyable and engaging experience. And Talion is ridiculously overpowered. That guy is absurd. He has the wraith of a centuries-old elf in his body. He can mind control people, he can teleport, he can jump fast distances, he can sprint really fast, he's devastatingly good with a sword. He's basically an elf, let's be real. He's not an elf, but in terms of physical capabilities, he's basically an elf. But that game is fun, A, because they actually go to some extent to make Talion just a normal dude. Like, he himself is a normal dude. If Celebrimbor wasn't in there, he'd just be a normal dude. And he doesn't want to be a grand, amazing hero, he just wanted to live with his family, that's it. And if you play that game on the higher difficulties, Urukai can drop you pretty fucking easily. You're not that strong. It's more that you have to be crafty and clever, but it is still a game where you very much have Mary Sue-esque abilities, especially in the Lord of the Rings universe. But that is an example of a game with ridiculously overpowered stuff that I actually like and actually enjoy. If you make the game hard enough, then fine, have your Mary Sue characters, but I guess I'm just not interested in playing games where I can absolutely blitz my way through everything and feel nothing for it. There's gotta be context, there's gotta be weight, there's gotta be stakes, it's gotta feel like a challenge. Some of the best battles I've ever had in Total Warhammer 3 was with shit armies. Small shit armies going up against each other because the stakes were still high and the people involved were just scrubs, chumps, jobbers, losers. But upon their shoulders lied the fate of entire fucking factions. It became important and it became more engaging and exciting because they were not the best of the best. They were just scrub lords running at each other. Much more fun. I like playing Project Zomboid a lot for similar reasons, because no matter how well you build your character, they're still just a person. Like, yeah, maybe you could cheat to get more points. I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure there's a way. But, you know, you're always at risk, you're always in danger. The zombie hordes are dangerous. The game itself goes to extreme lengths to state that you're gonna die. This game isn't a story about how you survived the zombie apocalypse. This game is a story about how you died. The only question is how long it took and what happened. Like, how did you die and how long did it take? And fighting off a horde of zombies feels a lot more engaging when you are just some random dude, swinging a bit of 2x4 to keep them back, running away because there's too many of them, trying to hide, getting discovered, running again, killing a few more, trying to hide, getting hungry, getting thirsty, getting tired, desperately trying to find decent refuge but just stumbling on more zombies, and you can't just clear them out because you don't have a machine gun. You're not a Spec Ops army soldier boy, you're just an accountant or something, depends really what your background was, but that's just a much more engaging experience. And you feel better for having succeeded if you succeed, because you're like, the odds were against me and I fucking did it. I fucking did it. That's why I loved Halo 3 ODST as well. I like Halo, I grew up with it and I enjoy playing those games very much. But if you give me the choice between playing a Spartan, a genetically engineered, super armor-powered super soldier who can fight 20 dudes at once and win, or playing as an ODST who are the best of the best but still human, I will play an ODST. Because that is so much more fun. I find the story of ODST to be more enjoyable because these are just random dudes. Granted, best of the best soldiers in the UNSC, but they're still just people. And one of them gets hit by something that presumably Master Chief would be able to walk off after a little while, but he is wounded and dying for like most of the game from that point onwards. He is in critical condition because he got hit real bad and he's just a guy. I think a lot of games would be more fun if we focused more on our characters' limitations rather than their potential strengths. You can make fun gameplay while also not being the toughest guy in the world. It is possible, in fact it's been done many fucking times and I feel like it should be done more. Assassin's Creed should have been that really, and it's just not. It just isn't. Not anymore. Assassin's Creed should have been about using logic and cunning and the element of surprise to eliminate a target or even the odds in negative situations, but instead it's just an RPG, which, I don't know, I have no interest in Assassin's Creed. I had a little bit back in the day and I have no interest now. Ghost of Tsushima kind of runs a fine line between what I'm talking about, because Jin Sakai is just a guy. He's a samurai. He's a very well-trained samurai. He is one of the best in that setting, but he is still just a dude, but he does get some abilities that make him ever so slightly ridiculous. But he is still just a guy, and once again, if you play that game on hard difficulty, fighting 4 people is dangerous. Fighting 4 people can get you killed very quickly. Unless you're smart about it, unless you earn that victory. Making use of the environment, taking advantage of things around you, picking off enemies when they can't see you all becomes important. It's a good example of a game where you aren't overpowered. You can become overpowered, but it feels... you have to earn it. Like, you don't just get it, you very much have to earn it. And it feels earned. And it feels like Jin could do these things. And he starts out as, like, you know, the son of a minor lord, as it were, in feudal Japan. And basically a survivor of a terrible battle, presumed dead, not really that important to anyone, and he becomes the ghost. How did he become the ghost? By killing a lot of fucking people, which you have to do. And it takes a long time, and it's very difficult in places, especially if you play on harder difficulties. But you get there, and when people start referring to Jin as the ghost and start following him, you feel it, because Jin earned it. Jin didn't start that way. In fact, you have to basically convince Jin to stop fighting like a samurai, because it will get him killed. He has to grow, he has to adapt, he has to evolve, he has to get better, he has to develop. Which very much ties into what I would prefer to see in more games. It's much more interesting to me. In LobCorp, for instance, your nuggets are fucking nobodies. They're pathetic. They're fodder. They exist to die. Even if you've beaten hard suppression and gotten those bonuses to new recruits, they still exist to die most of the time. Like, you can, you know, if you're experienced with the game, you can keep them alive pretty consistently, but in many cases, on your first playthrough and stuff, they're gonna get killed, because loads of Abnos have things they're doing that you don't even begin to understand. In fact, you have to learn what they do. So, most of them will die, and that's what they exist for, but then you get nuggets who excel, who go above and beyond, who earn their place. They earn a reputation, they earn that place in your heart as someone special, and they did not start off that way, they became that. And that is one of the best gameplay experiences, or types of gameplay experiences that I can think of, is seeing those characters who are nothing, literally nothing, and prove themselves and become something. Becoming something from nothing is, I think, the key to what I want in a video game. I want to earn my place. I don't want it given to me. There is no satisfaction in having success given to me. I want to earn it. I think I'm repeating myself now, ladies and gentlemen, so I will leave it there. Let me know what you think, because if you enjoy power fantasies, there's nothing wrong with that. Power fantasies are fun, right? They're cathartic. I wouldn't judge nor blame anyone for enjoying a power fantasy game, or characters who are naturally powerful, charismatic, talented, pretty, whatever. We're drawn to people like that. I don't see anything wrong with enjoying that, but for me personally, I prefer playing someone who is a fucking loser and getting them there. Helping them get there. The journey is as much a part of the experience as the final destination. And I like to be able to build them up and get them there. Obviously, this is why I like RPGs, huh? This is almost kind of the point of them. But that's just me. Let me know what you think. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Special thanks to Beep, Adash, Sanjeev, Alkir, Honeydew Corporation, Sweet Baby Red, MB Alias, Jessie Kissy, Plutonium Pie, Dreamer Ghost, Leper Lullaby, K-Bub, Magical, The Frostbite, Monsoon, Some Worlds, Jumping with Joy, Warmaster Oku, SCP-1068, Namad, and Kenny T800 for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you all so much for watching. I would very much like to know what you think. Or better yet, can you think of games where you start as a fucking loser and then are forced to develop yourself into something significant? You're forced to earn your way to the top. You're forced to build yourself up. By contrast, because we always enjoy a bit of contrast around here, mention a game that you love, which is you just being a ridiculous power fantasy over strong character, and tell me why you love that game so much. Because it would be fair. I think it'd be fair to hear from the other side as well. And once again, I want to emphasize that if you like playing those characters, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you enjoy it, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Oh god, I'm dying. I only express opinions on this show. Not really facts. This is not a fact show, this is not an informative show, this is just my opinions and me discussing them. So if you have games like that you really enjoy, tell me about them. Let me know. Who knows, maybe I'll try one myself. And same with the ones where you have to earn your way back up. But whatever happens next time, and I always struggle for topics on Foreman Plays, on Foreman Talks, I've got to be honest. So if you've got topics, let me know and I'll be happy to cover them, or at least consider them. But whatever happens next time, hope I see you there. Doodles, goodbye.